You can ask the flowers. I sit for hours telling all the bluebirds.
Hi everyone, this is Holiday with Birth Milk, and today I'm going to be going over something super duper interesting, and it's called the breast crawl. So the breast crawl, if you've never heard of it or never seen it, is when right after birth that baby is either put on the abdomen or the chest of the mother and is able to actually crawl and latch itself. So cool if you've ever seen it. It's just like absolutely amazing. And why is it amazing? Well, other than it being like a really cool innate biological thing, is there's research to show that it decreases nipple pain when you allow the baby to self-latch, and it increases breastfeeding exclusivity, probably associated to that that decreased nipple pain, because nipple pain is one of those common reasons that mothers decide that they are going to no longer breastfeed. It's just too painful is what is said. So before I get into that, I actually think we need to touch on something by Dr. Widstrom. Now, Dr. Widstrom described 9 stages that a baby goes through right after birth. And these stages she assessed 4 different countries, Italy, Japan, the US, and one more that I'm blanking on, to kind of see if this is a universal phenomenon. And what she found was that most of the babies were doing these 9 stages, with some of the stages overlapping, some of them having like certain stages a couple times, or completely removing one of the stages or so. So this is really cool because this kind of will give us an idea on the importance of different phases that baby goes through before it starts breastfeeding. So the first stage is the birth cry. So the baby cries, helps get all that kind of amniotic fluid left over in the lungs, which is really important. And then that immediately goes into kind of this relaxation stillness mode. And that is kind of, I think theoretically is said because that baby just went through a lot. I mean, being pushed out of the womb, safe, dark, beautiful, kind of has a very specific sound of the mother's womb that isn't in the environment, to usually bright lights, tons of noise, like voices are much clearer, like everything has changed. So there's this stillness phase. And then there's the awakening phase. So small thrusts of the head, some small movements, a little bit of mouth activity, kind of just sensing what's going on here. Okay, feeling the environment, getting a little more comfortable. And then that goes into the activity phase. And the activity phase is really moving. Now you're moving your head, you're moving your limbs, you're pushing yourself a little bit, rooting, hand to breast, all the things. And then that goes into crawling. Crawling stage is that baby now it's pushing off. I am getting to that breast, y'all. I want to get there. I'm feeling a little bit hungry, or at least I need some soothing or something going on. Moving. And then that goes into resting. Gets all the way up to the chest and goes, oh, that was exhausting, y'all. That was a lot of movement I'm not used to. So that baby needs like, let's pause. Let's just take a break just for a second, like for like 10 minutes or something. And the resting phase is really unique because the resting phase can actually happen at any time. Often it happens after activity because that was a lot of work, but depending on, you know, how long your labor was, how old your baby is, whether it's like, you know, I don't know, 39, 40, 41, or any other factors like that, that will impact these stages. And just to preface, these are low risk, full-term babies, like 39 weeks, 40 weeks. We're talking about like healthy mamas, healthy babies. So we're not talking about babies on MAG. We're not talking about babies that got a narcotic at 8 centimeters. Like we're talking about kind of low risk situations, because all of that can impact this and these stages, because a baby coming out, you know, with a lot of magnesium sulfate may go through a much longer period of exhaustion, tired, and not able to really do a lot of activity. So the next phase is familiarization. And this is where that baby's on the chest, baby's licking, baby's really touching, playing a little bit, mouths the breast, roots on the breast, massages the breast, all of these things helps get that oxytocin flooding in mom and prolactin getting started, and then latches and breastfeeds all by itself, which is cool. And then the baby sleeps. Wonderful. Eats and sleeps. I love it. So that is Dr. Widstrom's stages. And like I talked a little bit about before, that can vary just a tiny bit. Oh, the fourth country was Sweden. I have Sweden written down. And just to kind of give you an example is, let's use the US. So the birth cry was in all the babies assessed in the US. Relaxation was in all the babies. Awakening was in all the babies. Activity was in 10 out of 11 babies. Resting was in 8 out of 11 babies. Crawling was in 9 out of 11 babies. Familiarization was in 6 out of 11 babies. Suckling was in 5 out of 11 babies. So you can see how some of them are missing stages, or sometimes they're overlapping. So just to go over one research paper today, because I think that would probably be the best for now, is really to go over one paper well. I chose the effect of baby-led self-attachment breastfeeding technique in the postpartum period on breastfeeding rates, a randomized study. So this is by Yin, Y-I-N, et al, meaning that there's multiple authors. And this study was done recently, I think it was 2020 or 2021. And what I found really unique about this paper was it was assessing breastfeeding exclusivity. It also assessed nipple pain. And then it's in an environment of a hospital that's designated with BFHI, which if you've never heard of BFHI, it's breastfeeding baby-friendly hospital initiative. And those hospitals, to be designated, you have to meet all of these requirements, which usually involves a certain amount of all nurses getting a certain amount of breastfeeding education, rooming in for moms and babies, which means diminishing nurseries. They have to pay their own formula, so they're not incentivized to just throw formula at all the moms and babies and families. So they're really focused on breastfeeding and increasing breastfeeding, like skin-to-skin contact right after delivery, all of those things. So this is a unique study because this is already in an environment that's really trying to promote, encourage, and support breastfeeding. And on top of that, for the intervention group, they're adding the opportunity for the baby to do a breast crawl. So what they found was that there was a huge difference in breastfeeding exclusivity at 3 days and 6 months postpartum. So they followed them up to 6 months. And then there was a significant difference in nipple pain at 3 days and 3 months. So just to go over this really quickly, is there at 3 days for breastfeeding exclusivity, 82.5% of the mothers who did the breast crawl were breastfeeding exclusively. And it was 70.4% in the ones who didn't do the breast crawl. At 6 months, it was 61.7% in the breast crawl group, versus 43.8% in the non-breast crawl group, which is pretty significant. And the nipple pain difference at 3 days was 16% in the breast crawl group versus 24% in the non-breast crawl group. And then at 3 months, it was 1.5% nipple pain in the breast crawl group versus 6.4% in the non-breast crawl group, which is quite a feat. Very, very interesting. Just really shows, and honestly, looking at this, it's possible that the exclusive breastfeeding is directly connected to the nipple pain, because if you're having a lot of nipple pain, do you want to breastfeed? I mean, it makes it so much harder to breastfeed. So that might be also associated to why the breastfeeding exclusive rates were different significantly in both of those groups. Anyway, I hope that helps. I hope that's super interesting to you as it is to me. I'm going to be using breast crawl in my practice from now on. Thanks so much. Bye.
You can ask the flowers. I sit for hours telling all the bluebirds